guys. It's been a while since I did a bit of a rugby video. I think I lost pretty much all of my rugby videos from the last time I recorded them back in the summer. I did a little bit of work and I don't know what happened, but I just couldn't upload any of them. So I missed out doing the summer rugby and then I just packed it in them for the um, rugby championship. But I'm back now with the Autumn Nation series, which is about to kick off tomorrow. Um, so I'm going to go through the fixture list and just go through to see what sort of shape the teams are in at the moment and where likely we're going to see some good games and hopefully maybe a couple of upsets as well. So yeah, let's go through and see what we've got. So we've got the new logo for the Autumn Nations series. So unlike last year where you had the Autumn Nations Cup, which was more or less like an expanded Six Nations for the autumn. Last year you had I think you had two groups of four, including Fiji and Georgia. Didn't really. It was a bit of a farce last year in 2020. I mean, Fiji didn't play any of their group games until they played Georgia in like the 7th, 8th place playoff. Wales were absolutely shocking in last autumn before the Six Nations win. You had England won it, but by playing some really dour, one-dimensional rugby, and I think the writing was on the wall for England about what was going to happen in the Six Nations really as well. Not a lot of people playing in form. Scotland, however, looking pretty decent, just getting a bit more depth, but they really shone in the Six Nations, and Scotland did with the wins away in France and Scotland as well. Then Italy actually played well against Wales for quite a long period of time in the 5th, 6th playoff, but were unlucky. I thought they were very unfortunate with the refereeing in that game, and Wales ended up running away with it. Ireland they just dismantled Wales pretty comfortably, but I still try to sort of struggle with what Ireland are trying to do really, because you've got a fantastic coaching setup in Leinster playing a really attractive brand of rugby, but yet Andy Farrell is still sort of as a legacy member of the Joe Schmidt era, is still and a lot of players hang over from the Joe Schmidt era. It's once you've brought in players who play a certain way for you, do you then ask them to play a totally different way they haven't been told to play? And no, I don't know. I mean, they didn't. They were really. They grew better as they got through the Six Nations. Did Ireland, and they beat England. But they shouldn't have lost to Wales in the opening weekend, even though they had a man down. They shouldn't have lost to Wales. But no. I mean, last autumn's Nations Cup was pretty crap, to be honest, and the quality of rugby was poor as well. But hopefully, this year is going to be a better series. So notice it doesn't say cup, so there's no tournament, there's no cup to play for this year. I did see on Talk Sport that I think a couple of people were talking about a cup, and it's like there is no cup. This effectively is just the autumn internationals back again now, but it's been rebranded as a series now, probably for marketing and television rights purposes and attractiveness rights. Maybe they're going to use this tournament as a way to sort of give additional points to the world rankings or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, let's look at the fixtures and let's see what we got. So the Autumn Nations Cup kicks off tomorrow. So we've got round one. So round one is 30th of October. The international window doesn't technically open until the 1st of November to the end of December. So both Scotland and Wales will be without any of their English-based or foreign-based players. They'll only be able to select their domestic-based players for the game. So Scotland will be missing people like Chris Harris, Stuart Hogg, Sean Maitland, but they should still have enough to beat Tonga. Tonga, unfortunately, are the weaker nation of the Pacific nations at the moment. They've really regressed. They look really off in terms of conditioning is really poor. just not even being able to put up a sort of a showing or fighting games at the moment. Really unstructured to the point that you would even fancy a semi-professional team from England or Division 2 or 3 team to give them a game or even beat them at this point. I think Tonga need to put a lot more pride back in the jersey because I know there's been a lot of disruption over the last couple of years, but now they are getting the opportunity to play Tier 1 nations. They really need to make the most of it, to be honest. So I think Scotland will still have quite a lot of too much for Tonga. They should win Scotland by, I would say, let's have a look. I think we did say maybe 15 points overall. Let's have a look. I gave a scoreline of, no, actually, I gave it a lot more. Scotland 45, Tonga 14. So hopefully Tonga can get a couple of tries on the board and keep Scotland restricted until the hour mark, and then Scotland might score 2 or 3 tries afterwards then. So that's what usually happens to these types of games, and if it rains in Edinburgh, then of course, it's going to be a bit of a mess. So, but the big game of round 1 is Wales-New Zealand. Now, New Zealand have just come off absolutely walloping the United States. They've put 100 points on the United States in one of the most meaningless international fixtures I think I've ever seen. So, New Zealand, who were the number 1 ranked team in the world, going into play against the USA. The USA, obviously a tier 2 country, and not even able to select their best players who were playing in Europe at the time as well to play against them. It's just absolutely, it goes without saying, that's just ridiculous. They didn't stand a hope in hell, and 100 points is excessive, and that just does nothing for confidence in the American game whatsoever. So that sets them back a huge amount, and it's a massive warning for Wales. And I really think that, with the amount of injuries Wales have got as well, and not being able to pick out domestic players, I think Wales are on course as well. I think for a bit of a smashing tomorrow as well. So I've been generous to Wales. I think I'm going to give this to New Zealand 39-19. So just to give Wales a couple of tries in the game to salvage something. But the last few visits, New Zealand have been to Cardiff. They've scored more than 30 points, so I think it's going to be the same again tomorrow as well. So I've gone for Scotland and New Zealand in round 1. Round 2, it kicks off next Saturday. It's some really good games. So Ireland versus Japan. Ireland have already gained some revenge over Japan from that World Cup group loss, where they played them in the summer. I've done a video on that as well. It was a tight game, 39-31. Japan probably could have won that game, but we'll see what sort of shape they're in as well. They pushed Australia pretty close the other day as well. So I've gone for 31 to Ireland, 21 to Japan. Ireland have got a couple of exciting players I'm looking to see again. So Simon Zebo is one, obviously he's back after I think 4 years, and Baird, the back row as well. The Leinster boy is pretty good, so I'm looking forward to seeing him play as well. And it's just a shame they can't get it. I mean, I know Sexton's done the job for a number of years, but I would like to see if they could really fully blood another 10 that isn't Joey Carberry, because I just don't think he's not versatile. What's the word? I just don't think he can take the hits personally. I don't think they've got a 10 who can really ride the challenges, take the hits. Not durable. I don't think he's very durable at the moment. Anyways, I still go for an Ireland win. Ireland by 10 points, 31 to 21. And then we've got Italy versus New Zealand. Italy will be well up for it, but I think that New Zealand will stretch their legs in this game. Maybe a comfortable victory, 49 to 13 there for New Zealand. I think if Italy can keep them under 50 points, or maybe even under 40 points, that'll be a superb result for Italy. Then you've got England, Tonga. So England, I'm presuming, will blood quite a few new caps and to try and work some new combinations, namely looking at maybe Harry Randall and Marcus Smith and some new forward combinations as well. So it'll be interesting to see how England go, but I think England are going to have way too much for Tonga. It's going to be 56-19, I think, to England. So maybe 40 points difference it will end up in that game, maybe even more. Who knows? And then you've got Wales versus South Africa. So Wales have got a really tough autumn schedule this year, and the Boks come to town the week after New Zealand. So I know they don't have Faf de Klerk, but they still bring that huge forward pack as well. And I think that, unfortunately, I think that what's going to hit Wales when they it's either going to go one of two ways. Either South Africa are going to get dragged into a Wales type game, and we're going to sort of counter-attack. We're going to counter-attack them, and we're going to try and play a bit more expansive than we did under Gatland and try to beat them that way. Because I think if we do try to play the way the Gatland played in the summer against the Boks, I mean, it was effective for what it was to keep the game nice and tight and to limit, the Boks have limited themselves as an arm wrestle, but they're going to come out and win that. They know they can do it against the Welsh boys after beating the Lions in the summer. So I don't know, but anyways, I think I'm going to go for South Africa. Wales have got a decent record in the recent few games against South Africa, but I think I will go for the Boks. 28-16. I just think they're going to have a bit too much for Wales. Then we've got France. France is first outing in the Autumn Nations series, so France really looking forward to seeing what they've got. I thought they've got some brilliant new talent that they've unearthed as well in the summer, some brilliant combinations as well, and some excellent youngsters have come through too. So France are going to win this one because Argentina have really plateaued. They've not kicked on at all since beating the All Blacks, and I think that's their high water mark, quite frankly. It's been a little bit downhill since then. So France 33, Argentina 9. And then Scotland, I think Scotland are going to get up for this game against Australia. On the Sunday, I think it's going to be a really close game, particularly if the weather's poor. Australia are looking very excited now, but they are missing quite a few of their key players, like Karevi and Quade Cooper are not going to be available, and Reece Hodge got injured last week against Japan. So I still think they will have a little bit too much for Scotland. 24-21, I think Australia are going to take that game. So round 3, we're going to have a look at round 3. So we're going to have a look at Italy versus Argentina. So Italy versus Argentina, I think this will be close, but Argentina should squeak this one by and win 22-20. I think this is the best chance Italy have got to win a game in the autumn, personally, against a tier 1 nation. So, the other team is New Zealand, which they're not going to beat. So they're going to have to try and put in a good performance against Argentina. So I still fancy Argentina just about. Then we've got the next game, which is Scotland versus South Africa. So Scotland-South Africa will be. This is a bit of a tough one to call, because I do agree with what Finn Russell said after, in the Lions tour, which is to enable to beat South Africa. I think you have to not play South Africa's game and try and attack them from everywhere, counter-attack, and just make them think as much as defend. I do fancy South Africa though still with this one. I think it's going to be a bit of a close one though. So I'm going to go for Scotland 19, South Africa 25. So that's going to be a bit of a close one. I didn't write that one down. So Scotland 19, South Africa 25. Then we come to a big game then. I can't wait to see this on Channel 4, which is going to be Ireland versus New Zealand. This is absolutely huge, and obviously a little bit of success over New Zealand, a couple of wins over the last few meetings for Ireland. So I do fancy New Zealand. I just think that they've got quite a bit too much for Ireland as they are. They are sort of hitting a new crop of brilliant talent, the All Blacks, and I think they are going to take this one 29-18. So it will be close, but I think they'll just pull away, and they'll get scores at the crucial time, New Zealand. So that's going to be 29-18, I think. Then we've got England versus Australia. So I'm feeling, this will be the litmus test, an early litmus test for the new England kids, I believe. I think Eddie's going to go with them for this game too. I think they're going to beat Australia. It's going to be close. It's going to be 20 points to 17. Australia may not be able to get this one over the line as much as they probably would do against Scotland, but will push England close, no doubt, because they're playing some good rugby again. But I just fancy England playing at home, and with a lot of their new talent, maybe getting a win under their belt, they're going to fancy it. Then we've got France's second game, which is going to be France v Georgia. It's the first time we'll see Georgia in the Autumn Nation series, but I think Georgia will put up a decent showing, probably better than what Italy would provide, I would argue. But I still do fancy France at home, even if they do ring the changes for the game. I think it's going to be 42 points to 10. It'll be close for around an hour, but then I think France will pull away with towards the end and flatten the scoreline will flatten them quite a bit then. Now, Wales v Fiji. This is not an easy game for Wales whatsoever. Fiji have beaten Wales and knocked us out of the World Cup. Back in 2007. They've got a draw at the Millennium Stadium back in 2010, and they nearly got another draw or even beat Wales back in, I think it was 2015 or 16. So, and often what we used to see with Gatland was that Gatland would, when he was Wales coach, would ring the changes for the sort of the easy game for the Wales team, and the sort of that lack of fluidity would allow the weaker sort of opposition from tier 2 to fancy their chances. Like Wales nearly had a draw with Georgia one year because of poor scrimmaging, because Leon Brown can't scrimmage. So, I do think this is going to be a close game, but I do think Wales will just have enough to beat Fiji, but it will be a close game. I think this will be the only win for Wales in the series. It's going to be 20 points to 19, I believe. So, and then we get to the final round of the Autumn Nation series, and they are some cracking games as well. So, a big game I'm looking forward to seeing. Can Scotland get their revenge against Japan? I do think they will. I think they will get their revenge against Japan, purely because I think Japan will have they'll have too many high quality games to be playing in such a short period of time against Australia, Ireland, and then Scotland. All playing, apart from Australia, playing away in Ireland and away in Scotland as well. But I think Scotland are going to win this one. It is going to be a close one. I think Scotland are going to win 29-25, but it will be sweet revenge after the World Cup where they got dumped out. Then we've got Italy. I believe Italy will record their win in the autumn. They will beat Uruguay, even though Uruguay rugby have made some really good strides. Particularly some of their players who play in the Major League Rugby in America have been fantastic recently. So, yeah, I fancy Italy to beat Uruguay 37-15, and this is really a must-win for Italy, and a win well, just to give them some confidence to go into the Six Nations as well. Then we have England-South Africa. Now, I do fancy South Africa in this fixture. I don't know what it is. I just think that not only this is the first time they'll play since they've played at the World Cup, England against South Africa, so that sort of heartache will still linger for the England boys, but how many of those boys would have been the team that played in the final? Not many, I probably would say, maybe 10 of that, if that. But I still do fancy South Africa for this particular fixture. I fancy them just to kick England off the park and then get a couple of tries too. So 26-17, I'm going to go for South Africa in this one. I just think England's young guns will come up a little bit short against South Africa in that fixture. So so I'm going to go for that. And then Wales or Australia. So Wales had a massive losing streak against Australia. I think it was something like 11 fixtures. We hadn't beaten them from 2008 all the way until, when was it, last year, 2019, so yeah, 11 years. Some heartbreaking losses. I think about 5 of them were in the last minute, and the majority of the games we did play against Australia, I think that most of them were either by 5 points or less that we lost. But we did manage to win the key ones, which was in the autumn of last year, 2019, when Wales did a clean sweep that year. I think no, it's 2018 maybe, and after then the World Cup, which was obviously the biggest game. We needed to win that game to top the pool, which Wales did then. So I think, albeit I think we're going to sort of go back to, unfortunately, go back to our habits of losing to Australia at home. I do fancy Australia's, big performance at the end of the autumn, and I can see them winning in Cardiff, 29 points to 25. It's going to be close. I think Wales will play some decent rugby, but I just fancy Australia um, to come away with a victory there. So 29-25 to Australia. And then we've got a couple of games there just to finish off the Autumn Nation series. So we've got some crackers. I'll go with Ireland first and Argentina. So the bottom one I'm going to go with first. So Ireland 31, Argentina 10. This is going to be a routine victory for Ireland, I think, unless they get a man sent off. Well, even if they do get a man sent off, I think that Argentina just will not have enough to unless they sort of rediscover some form out of nowhere, which I can't see at the moment. I think Ireland are going to be comfortable winners in there, 31-10. So, yeah, about 20-point victory. I think they're going to put on Argentina there. So, one of the biggest games, probably the most exciting game. I can't wait to see this autumn. And this is a mouth-watering game. I've been waiting for this for 2 years at least now. Is France versus New Zealand, and I want to see what Antoine Dupont can do and the boys can do against New Zealand at the top level. They are both in each other's pool for the World Cup, so this will be laying down a marker. I do think that the one team that the All Blacks do not like to play against is France, and I do fancy France to actually win this game, believe it or not. So I'm going to give this one France 26 to 23 for New Zealand. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think that there's one team that doesn't respect the All Blacks, and they can either get smashed by them or they can turn them over. And New Zealand don't like playing France, just pure because of the unpredictability. I think that's going to come through again, but there's so much inventiveness in France's backline and coming from Dupont. It'll be interesting to see how they try to shut him down and what type of defensive set that they can put in to nullify him, really, because he runs the game. So, yeah, France 26, New Zealand 23, and I think that everyone will win, and most of them will win, but I think everybody will get beat at some point in the Autumn Nation series. So that will do nicely, really, I think, because we can't have any. We want international rugby to be competitive. We want everyone to enjoy it. As long as everyone's playing good rugby and sort of showing improvements here or there, then we're excited then for the World Cup again. And so so overall, I hope everybody enjoys the series as well. And if you have any sort of other views that other score lines as well, you want me to keep a lookout for, then by all means give me a comment and let me know as well then. But I hope you enjoy the series as well, and it's going to start kick off tomorrow with Scotland Tonga before the